Oh, there we go. I think I
There
have.
we go. I can hear you now.
Ah, could you not hear me before?
I could not know. I
Oh
wasn't
no.
just staring blankly at you. Uh,
Well, thank you for joining me. I'm glad it's working now. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about your music because you're not like any of the other guests that I've had on the show, and your music is definitely really special. So I'd like to dive into that a little bit deeper. But for those who are
well,
kind of watching back, I'll give a bit of an intro to my show. So I started this Be the Artist blog last year when I started to explore music for the first time. And initially it was to learn about the music industry, what it's about, how to kind of navigate with releases, even putting music up on Spotify. These are just so many minor things for artists that have probably done it before. But I wanted to talk to other artists to learn about their personal experience. So this year I've kind of explored releasing music, but wanting to dive deeper into how to stay within this industry, which is ever moving, so many components. So I'm glad I have you as a guest today. But for those who don't know, maybe give yourself a bit of an intro, how long you've been doing music, and all that good stuff.
sure, thank you. So my name is David. I go under the artist name Daverage Normal or Daverage J Normal. Uh, it just stuck. I've been making music for most of my life now. Well, for most of my life. But to keep the story short, I started playing bass in bands when I was in my early teens. I still play bass guitar. And I started, I guess, noodling with electronic music in the early 2000s. And I mean noodling, just sort of playing with like Rebirth at the time, which is, button pressing and not really thinking about it. And then Reason after that, and continued playing through bands up until relatively recently, but started looking at, and taking electronic music a bit more seriously a few years ago. Like, you get excited as a musician, you try and explore as much as you can. So wound up with like a copy of Cubase, and
Nice.
just started making tunes, which looking back now sound awful. Uh, and then when lockdown happened in March 2020, I mean, I used to work full time in the West End, suited, lovely shoes, very corporate job. I just had some time to reflect and was just, I don't want to do this for the next 30 years. So I went back to college to study audio production because I've always wanted to do music more, to do more music, excuse me. And work kind of gets in the way of that,
Yeah.
really. So went back to college and sort of rediscovered a passion for writing electronic music. And yeah, that comes to an end. My 2 year course comes to an end this year. And here I am, I guess. I can add to that. I started self-releasing music last year as well,
Nice.
um, and continue to do that throughout 2021, and plan to keep doing it this year as
Amazing.
well.
Amazing. Yeah, no, you've had quite a bit of a journey, I guess, in and out of music. I think it's the story of a lot of musicians now. They have kind of a different day job to what they do with music, and then it's that leap of faith getting into, okay, I want to do music full time. I really
Yeah.
want to make this happen. So props for you for going back to studying music again. The name Daverage Normal, where does that come from? Is there a story behind
Uh,
it, or?
there is. There is a story. It's not a particularly a funny one, but I find it amusing. So, having been in bands, one of the most frustrating things to do in bands is when you all meet up and you're jamming away, you're coming up with some tunage. It's like, oh, we need a band name. We need a cool band name.
Right.
And you go through this period of like just throwing names, until something sticks, and no one ever agrees, and it always ends up being a compromise or just an acceptance that no one's going to listen to what you say.
Right.
Um, so I've tried loads of musician names. I've come up with loads of band names, and I've always thought name that makes the music, it's the name. And the way I got Daverage Normal, buddy of mine, Phil, who We've got one of those, bro relationships where there's a lot of like sniping and rug pulling for the sake of it. Called me Daverage Normal because it's averagely just normal guy working 9 to 5. And so it just kind of stuck. The name Daverage Normal was given to me as a kind of semi-insult for having a normal 9 to 5 and being averagely just normal. And it's kind of stuck. And I went through a phase probably a year ago, actually, or when I was starting to gather music to release, of wanting to change my name to something cool because I
Mhm.
didn't want to be Daverage Normal. And I came up with lists like Mad Chasm Oblivious, Punch Donkey, just typing names into band generators and trying to get ideas.
Right.
But the hard fact of it is, if you Google Daverage Normal, it's just always in the
Yeah.
top 10 of Google. Um, so I
You
can't help
know,
it. I am Daverage Normal now.
I love it though, because I was thinking that, I mean, it makes sense, it's kind of like an average, normal, everyday guy doing his music thing. So I think it kind of makes sense for what it is. I know a lot of band. I went through the same process with my band.
Yeah.
I think we ended up with the name Emerald Mist or something, which looking back, it's just ridiculous. But we thought, we were like, oh, we nailed it, like it's the best name ever. But I do think, some names that are well thought out,
Yeah.
that it's something that you can be like, I know what this is about, so it's fully me. So I like that. You spoke a bit about releasing, well, being in music for most of your life now,
Yeah.
and being in the genre of electronic music. Has that, I mean, electronic music now is such a wide scape of different sounds. You have cyberpunk, you have some psychedelic stuff, you have some I mean, you describe your music as space driven electronic music. Has that changed over the years for you, or have you always had that unique sound from the very beginning?
It's a good question. I don't think I've got an answer that'll round it off perfectly, because, as you say, electronic music can change so rapidly, and it's so easy to get new electronic music out there that it's such a transitionary phase within a genre of itself that things come and go and new things happen, things are reimagined. The space-driven element comes from the fact that I'm quite a big sci-fi fan. I mean, I enjoy watching science fiction. I enjoy the themes of science fiction, and electronic music was always used as sound effects in
Right.
sci-fi on the radios back in day. And unless you're doing something that's quite defined and dancey, you can sort of veer off into that maybe sort of overly indulgent, spacey, noodlingy sounds. But it was somebody left me a review or did a write up for me on one of my tracks, and they said he's a retro futuristic space driven musician. I was like, I'll take that,
Yeah.
because I think trying to label myself is a challenge, because in what I would view as the traditional electronic music producer mindset, where you're doing maybe sort of dance music, you're coming from like a DJ background into producing that, you've got that sort of defined line of sight of what the music is. And I literally just enjoy sitting around and kind of experimenting, noodling, trying things. And if you take the time to go and listen to my current collection, you'll notice that there's a common kind of feel to it, but I'd like to think that it's not too monodirectional, if that
Yeah.
answers your question effectively.
Yeah, no, it does. I was listening. I mean, you released Out There last year as well, and you had Dark Stars as well that you released.
Yeah.
Those are the two that kind of stood out to me. But like you said, there is definitely a common thread. I do like the description of retro space-driven electronic music, because I think it does encompass most of the music that you have out there. But each track is quite different as well, and I guess that's a
Mm.
little bit credit to the genre itself. Electronic music is quite evolutionary in the way it kind of moves around.
Yeah.
It changes from era to era. So I guess even from yourself, from your own perspective, from when you started, there is definitely some growth as you go on, because music changes, your interests change, and your influences change
Mm.
as well. If there was an artist, or maybe a group of musicians that have inspired you to kind of go into this field of electronic music, who would you say that is? And has that changed as well?
Um, so for a very long time, my favorite musical artist has been Les Claypool from Primus. Obviously, he's an amazing bass guitar player.
Mm.
And I've been playing bass guitar since I was 13, which is about 25 years now, 25, 26 years. So that's where my kind of roots in music are, and the electronic music became sort of like a side project because I was in bands, but I wanted to do other stuff. And so when I started listening to electronic music back in the day, it was like things like The Prodigy were there. But at the same time as Prodigy, there were loads of like crossover bands. Like there's a great band called Censor, who are from South London, who've been around since like the 90s, who do, 90s breakbeat with metal and rapping. And it was those artists that kind of pushed my influences, I guess, into electronic music. For a specific electronic artist, because I'm still discovering the broad genres within it, I find it hard to pin it down on a single artist.
Mm.
And also the way that we consume music has changed so much now. Whereas back in the day when I was a young lad, you'd buy a CD, you'd listen to it from start to finish, open it,
Right.
or vinyl when you sit there and you have the experience. But because of the way you discover music on Spotify is very much driven by playlisting, you can hear a great track and have no idea who the artist is unless you check it, save it, and you do that dozens of
Right.
times. And so you just kind of get lost. So I think every electronic artist I've enjoyed has had an influence on my music. It's just a
Right.
shame I can't name all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
some of the
I think.
ones that I
Sorry, I was
was
just
going
going
to
to
say,
say. Yeah. Go on. Go on.
one of the ways this also changed is with things like Instagram, where you can go and follow people that make music, and then you end
Mm.
up listening to more of their music. They become sort of the artists that have an impact on the way that you experience it. So one of the artists I've been listening to most recently, who I discovered on Instagram, was Florogenics, which is like an ambient, trippy, modular synth kind of
Right.
setup with some videos. It's my morning alarm, 5 a.m. It goes off, and it's like, oh, it's actually quite peaceful. So I, I that would be my answer to that. Is that there's so many, but I've not
Yeah.
fanboyed over any of them like I did when I was younger.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and you touched on a point with artists today and releasing music. It's so different to how it was back in the day. I remember having actual CDs and cassette tapes with like booklets, album booklets, and stuff like that. That doesn't happen anymore. You're consuming
Mm.
music at such a quick, fast-paced rate. You don't really pay attention to the artists as much as maybe you did before. I notice also, for your work and for a lot of artists there now, it's becoming a bit more visual. Like there is a lot of visual elements to the music, and you have quite a unique theme, going across your releases. With your release of your EP as well last year, and I know you've collaborated with some designers like the Blue Hat Lady as well on Instagram.
Hmm.
How important is that to you, and how much do you get involved in that sort of different medium of creativity?
Um, so, Blue Hat Lady, also known as Bright Light, is my partner. So
Oh, okay.
she does visuals. That's her old Instagram profile. But yeah, she did some artwork for me, and also my pal Bunny Breaker did some visuals. Um, and a couple of vids for me as well. Did the video. He let me use footage from his video game for Dark Stars,
Yeah.
essentially. And up until recently, I've kept myself at arm's length from anything visual because I'm a musician, a music producer, whatever. But recently, actually started paying attention to the apps that you can get on your smartphone, and I've just been noodling around with them. And I want to share music when I finish it, right? I want to gauge what reaction might be like, or just tell people I've done it. So I've just started, messing around with like Wombo Dream, which is like an AI artist platform, or like a fractal generator, Glitch Lab and Mirror Lab, and just going, oh, if I spend 15 minutes doing this, I can make a 15-second clip, add a
Mm.
bit of my tune to it, post it on Instagram, and then just move on to something else. And I've the reason for that is because it's really hard to capture people's attention with just music in a visual medium like Instagram or TikTok. And it just gives a little bit of a nudge. And, some people might like it, some might not. But I've just created a little portfolio for myself of stuff I've been working on. And I know already by the time I've posted it what the album art's going to be. So
Yeah.
it's just a nice way to move through it. And I'm not a talented visual artist like a lot of other people are. I'm just going for 10 minutes and I'm done. But I will have
Yeah.
spent, 8 to 24 hours on the music. That's where the real effort is.
Right.
And I just want to just get it out
Put it
there and
out
show.
there.
There's a little snippet. If you're interested, like, follow, save, subscribe, all
Yeah.
that jazz.
I think also now, like, you have to wear many hats. It isn't just being a musician anymore, which, yeah, I won't say it's unfortunate. I think it's just the new era of music. It just needs to be that way. Um, but you have to do the whole promotion. You have to do social media, and if you really think about it, with major mainstream artists, you
Mm.
get people doing that for you. You get a social media manager, you get a
Yeah.
marketing or PR, and now as people who are maybe independent, you have to do everything. What kind of have you learned maybe being newer to social media now, and the way you have to kind of put your music out today than when you first started?
I had MySpace back in the day, back in 2000 and whatever it was, 2007. And that was kind of easy to interact with because you just put some music up and you go, yeah, okay, this is fine. And I've had like 3 or 4 Facebook profiles over the last however long. But I have and I'm sure many people do, quite a difficult relationship with social media. I'm just not used to it and I'm getting better at it. And to be honest, sometimes I find it hard to just upload something because your mind can get flooded with too much self-referential interest about whether or not it's good enough and all that
Mm,
kind of stuff, which is pointless because if people don't like it, they scroll past it and it doesn't matter.
right.
Um, I think as an independent artist, there are a lot of pitfalls you can fall into uh, with social media promotion and how you do it. I'm still trying to learn how to go through that and how to capture attention of people. And there's a
Mm,
lot of people that want to take advantage of you as a new artist. And I'm sure you'll have experienced this as well. You get someone comments on a post, "Oh, your tunes are normally fire.
mm,
Your tunes are fire, but you deserve more." And then comes the message of, "Well, this is what I can do for you."
right.
Number of plays or Spotify list placement or promo. And I'm not a fool. I've worked in that professional sales environment for well over a decade. I can see when someone's trying to pitch me.
Right.
So I find that quite frustrating. Um, but there are ways that you can reach people that are much more qualitative in how they can expose you or provide you with content that you can share
Mm,
that's coming from a reputable third party. It's just picking out the ones that are most suitable for you as an individual. But most importantly, I think, is realizing that to make music should be like an intrinsic motivator. It's just, I really just like making music, and I find this whole part of it, the social media engagement and writing about it, to be a bit of a pain in the backside sometimes.
yeah.
But you do get some reward from it. But
Right.
most of my enjoyment's on this side.
Right.
It's just that if I want people to experience that side, I have to do some of this as well. It's a
Yeah. I mean,
love-hate relationship.
exactly. Exactly. I think a lot of people will connect with that. I think social media is a great platform to connect. I know, we're connecting. We're both from the UK. It's a pleasure to also hear from a UK artist on social media. There's so much talent across the world, but this gives you an opportunity to connect with people that maybe our paths wouldn't cross on a daily
Yeah.
basis. And without maybe social media, maybe I would never even hear about your music, or you would hear about my show. So I think that there is definitely some benefits to it, but again, it's the same thing. Like you said, you have to almost talk about yourself, which is also quite
Yeah.
cringe. Like, this is my
It's
product.
constant self-sales. It's constantly
Yeah.
selling yourself and selling your product. And I'm under no illusion. If it wasn't for social media, nobody would ever hear of Daverage Normal's music. It's the only outlet I really sort of push it through to. I don't play live shows,
Right.
because it's not that kind of setup. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've played live shows before in rock bands and stuff, but I
Right.
haven't felt the need or the desire to cart all the stuff that's over there out
Right.
of the house in the back of a car into a dingy bar on a wet, rainy Monday night to play to one man and his dog. Um, so I understand the value it does in creating those connections. I mean, like yourself, I also run a podcast which interviews artists,
Right.
but it's done for a radio show through the college. So I've met people, around the world,
Mm.
and you chat to them and you learn new things, you make connections, you discover new music you can listen to. And I'd much rather listen to their music than just taking what Spotify tells me to listen to, or
Right, right.
so there is the huge amount of value to it. But some people have a natural, what is it? I'd say a laissez-faire attitude towards the phone camera in face kind of interaction, which is the strongest you can have.
Yeah.
It's just I don't feel that people probably don't want to see what I'm up to on a day-to-day basis in that level of detail. I share the
Right.
important stuff.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, even I've done this stuff before, and I've started YouTube channel, tried to vlog what I'm doing, and you just realize you're not that interesting. You know,
Yeah,
it should be about the music, right? It should just be simply, I love what I do, and I love what I've produced. Here it is. But
yeah,
now, yeah, you have to kind of drive that a little bit into people's faces. So I was talking to somebody else the other day about music, and I feel like people consume music with their eyes now. They don't really listen anymore. It's everything has to be in their face for them to understand, like, oh, okay, let me go check this out, or this is the
yeah.
person behind the music, I'm going to invest in them and then explore what they do. So it's, yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22, but we're out here, we're doing the camera in the face thing. It's
Yeah,
all good.
fine. No, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Maybe somebody might have some hate comments, but I don't know.
yeah.
Thank you also for anyone who's tuning in. I will
Or
also
they,
say, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, or we might freeze up again, but then it started again. No worries.
No, please no. um, so you've released your EP, General Dysfunction, also last year.
Yeah.
How was releasing a project as kind of, you know, singles and EPs? Have you found a difference in the electronic field? Because I think it's a little bit different there,
Yeah.
compared to other genres. So how was that
Uh,
experience?
so my experience comes from being in rock bands. It
Yeah.
was a very different experience because the process, I've got to a point now where I can finish a track that's release ready in under 24 hours combined if I've got the time. Just go, just done, and it's there. If you're in a band with three or four other people, you've got there's weeks of rehearsals. There's going to the studio and getting it recorded, getting it printed, or getting the producer who's paid for you to go to the studio to actually pay his fee to the studio so the album gets released. That's
Right.
happened. With electronic music, firstly, if people don't know who you are or they're not invested in you as an individual, why are they going to spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes listening to your music? And I can respect that. It's a big ask in this day and age. So when I released the first track I released in 2021 was Void Walk. I was very excited about it. It was the first release I'd done properly by myself ever. You know, you kind of have these dreams that it's gonna happen. Of course, it doesn't, and so you learn from it. But you can get some listens in, and with an EP, the only promotion I did for that EP was on the 24th of July. I just said, "Oh, by the way, my EP's out today," and that was it. And maybe I did a video like a month before. But to get your the rapidity that electronic music can be produced and released and trends change, you just have to be constantly telling people about it and then tell them about it afterwards. And I'm still learning how to do that effectively.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very different. It's so rapid, and
Yeah. I was going to say, conceptually, have you, like, did you find any difference in, like, I mean, talking about that EP, was there a concept that you were thinking about through those tracks, or were they some material that you
oh
collated?
right, conceptually, the big
I was
questions.
asking that question. Now I'm asking conceptually. Yeah.
Do I think about the music that I write? Yes, I do. So um, the the way that I like to write it, it's very creativity can be quite explorative.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I might be sitting down saying, okay, I'm going to write a song about X, Y, Z. Yes, that sometimes does happen, but doesn't always. So on that track is Up, on that EP is Up, which is a rewrite of a track I wrote for a rock band I was in that never went anywhere. So I took the
Right.
bass line and reimagined it, and it sounds quite cool.
Yeah.
And that's the same for Bad Trip as well. It was a song from 15 years ago that was really cool, very, very progressive rock tune from a bass guitar perspective, that I just turned electronic. Void Hawks was a remix of my first single. Strut was just another track. So
Yeah.
conceptually, no, I don't. I just like enjoy writing. I go, well, I've done it now.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
General Dysfunction, however, is a reference to a book, a trilogy book by Peter F. Hamilton called Neutronium Alchemist, or I think that's the first book. But General Dysfunction is a series about when, for whatever reason, it's set in space, but dead people are coming back to life. So run wild
Right.
with your imagination on that.
Right. So there was a concept there, right? Kind of.
Okay,
Um,
kind of.
yeah.
I just enjoy I haven't. So my release in February, At the Precipice, that February, that was a defined that had a defined concept because I was struggling with sleeping, and I was finding myself just not being able to get back into a rhythm of sleep at like 2 or 3 in the morning. So I just go and sit down and start playing, and that's how that came together.
Mm.
And you can, if you put yourself in my dressing gown, because I wouldn't be wearing shoes at that time, you can kind of get a sense of like an ethereal dreaminess, but also some quiet, nervous energy throughout it. So that had a defined concept.
Yeah, I think that the only reason I asked that is because a lot of, from a vocalist perspective and from a songwriter perspective, sometimes you have themes of, I'm going to talk about, I don't know, pain in my whole
Yeah.
EP, and this is what it's all about. But you know, listening to your music, obviously, because you know, some obviously you've collaborated with vocalists before, but you know, it's more of a feeling of that moment. I don't feel like it
Hmm.
needs to be a collection of sounds that need to be uniform in any way. So I think there's maybe sometimes a bit of an advantage there. You did collaborate with Dave Kirk on the song Decompression. How was that
Yeah.
collaboration, and how is it working with a vocalist in this kind of genre compared to rock?
Um, well, it's kind of easier in a way, I guess. He's the only chap I've worked with electronically for vocals, and I'm happy to do that again. And we have actually been talking about doing some more work together. But we have a pre-history, which was I played bass in a band with him quite regularly. So the difference is that rather than me just standing there and playing, I've written this tune. Do you want to add some words to it? Go wild, whatever. Send me
Right.
the tracks that you've recorded, and then I'll make it sound lush, which I did.
Yeah.
Um, and he found a theme, which is about smoking weed, and called it medication. And I was like, let's call it decompression, because I just think that's a much nicer ring to it. He was like, are
Yeah.
you sure? And I was like, well, it's too late now. I've released it. Uh,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe
let's,
that could be the next one, right? You could stay on theme.
well, yeah. Well, no, because there is a great line in the track which talks about decompression, and in the video, it's the point where the animated figure kind of dissolves into smoke, and I just think that's a much more captivating moment.
Yeah.
Even though the main kind of hook lyric throughout the track is medication, I just know some people go that way. I'll go that way.
Fair enough. Have you yourself explored, you know, vocals and adding, because electronic, you have that flexibility of, you know, you can tune some
Yeah,
stuff up and make it almost like an instrument sometimes. Have you explored that yourself?
have I put it? So no, I mean I've got enough microphones in this room, believe it or not, to record like a full band, and I haven't stuck one in front of my face and tried to do like lyrics. I've had the idea that I want to.
Okay.
Um, and I imagine that comes down to an issue with you know, my voice has got a vocal range of about this, you know, up to that here. So I've
Right.
got a very narrow band, talky kind of voice. And also, what good stories do I really have to tell people that are going to be captivating? Unless I'm not, if I'm sharing sort of bits about my real life, it's, you know, it's just family life in London or
Hmm.
Croydon where I live. You know, it's quite pleasant around here. I've got a nice garden. I get up, sometimes I go to work and go to college. I look after the kids. Sometimes they annoy me. Sometimes I don't get enough sleep. There's no kind of, captivating life story, that I can sort of share with people on that front. I can only do like thematic, fictional type stories.
Yeah.
And then it becomes kind of like, what's this song going to be about? Oh, maybe there's a boy, maybe he's not happy and some bad stuff happens. That's a bit depressing. or maybe I sort of explore my internal emotions or the darker side of my mind, and then you're just going, oh, yeah. So no, I haven't. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I was just going
Maybe
to
I
say,
should.
as much as you might think that's not as engaging, it's relatable, right? You know, you've done a lot of things that maybe people can connect with in that sense, like having a 9 to 5 and having a passion.
Yeah.
You know, this how many people will say that they, you know, have that same sort of feeling, and then also going back to music production and studying music, that, you know, making that leap is not a small feat. You know, to go back into schooling is a lot of work, and relatable. I feel like music is all about connecting with people, right? So
Yeah.
as maybe it's not as sparkly as the story of somebody with heartbreak and they recover from that heartbreak and find the one, I think there's still some way to connect with people. So I hope we get some of that in the future.
I mean, to come to think of it, Dolly Parton did write a song about waking up and having coffee and going to work. So
Right.
people will listen to anything, I guess, if they like it. Not
Exactly.
dissing Dolly Parton there, just popped into my head.
Yeah, true. Maybe you could do like an electronic version of 9 to 5, you know.
I could.
There was a pause, like, no,
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
pass
but I
on that.
probably could.
You could.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Indestructible, your single.
Yeah.
How, I mean, how did that come about, and what was the kind of theme behind that, if there was one,
hmm
when you were releasing the music?
Right. So Indestructible. I started writing that in December at some point. I don't mind sharing this. So today is like my 104th day without a drink because I
Oh,
was starting to drink very heavily throughout. Like lockdown kind of just
right.
made me go a bit off the rails. And I'd been as a someone that writes music, I had been struggling to get ideas out and used to think, oh man, I'm not writing enough music. I don't have enough time, all of this kind of stuff. And the first part of that track came together quite easily. It was just, it's an arpeggiated riff on my bass station. I'll show that to you.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
On the bass station.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got stuck for ages trying to get from A to B. And then so you kind of sit there and you drink and you get a kind of buzz and nothing happened. A couple of days later, another kind of happy accident happened. It was kind of nice and jovial. You
Mm.
go through that, adding all the glitchy stuff to add interest. And then the end came. It was another happy accident where you're just trying to get stuff out. But the way it kind of made me feel on the reflection back is a bit of a journey into becoming kind of quite uplifted and, you know, indestructible. It starts off, you know, quite uncertain at points and then drives into something that's quite happy and fun. And at the end, there's a defined sense of like determination in like the real industrial, like almost techno bass
Yeah.
and drums. And that's how it's made me feel every time I listen to it, is it really does lift you up. Apart from the vocal cuts, which says, kill me and what is this and stuff, that's there for fun.
Yeah.
Um, but it was kind of the last track I wrote really where I struggled to get from section to section. I'm finding it a lot
Mm.
easier these days. So yeah, I think I lost what the question was because my
Yeah,
mind.
no, that I think you answered it there. Firstly, congratulations on you know, your sobriety for that long.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually that I'm talking to since lockdown are now exploring, you know, a different lifestyle. I think that whole past couple of years has really warped the way we kind of
Mm,
function on a daily basis. So there's a great example of how something can be so relatable. And I did get a sense of that uplifting in the music because there is kind of like a almost a tension release like at a point in the song. So I think now knowing the sort of backstory, it's very interesting how, you know, now I can listen back and know what you were writing to. So that's amazing. How has the response been for the single so far?
Um, it's been agreeable, I guess. You know, I've not taken off onto vast planes of success and you know, notoriety that one would dream about. But I've had positive responses from people that have listened to it. I've had some playlisted, and the one achievement that I have got from it, you know, I've not made thousands of streams yet. It's been out what, a week? It has
Yeah.
been a week. I think I'm nudging maybe 200. So people, might be a bit less than that or a bit more. People need to listen to it more. But I have triggered the Spotify algorithm, so that's a win. Because I look at the
Yes.
stats and it's like this many plays, and oh, I'm getting played on somebody's Spotify radio. So that's really good. But that will be a culmination of the amount of playlist applications you go through for every track that you do. Some things happened in the Spotify ether, and
Yeah.
they've gone, oh, let's add this track to the radio.
No,
So I
that's
think
amazing.
for
That's
the
really
last 28 days, 7% of my plays are the algorithm. So that's been
incredible.
the biggest success. And I'm now, to be honest, when you work on a track as well, you probably know this, you spend so much time listening to it that you kind of release it and it's quite easy to go, oh, it's over now. And I'm just trying to
Mm,
plan what I do next because that was last week. And in the world of like music promotion and social media, 60,000 tracks per day uploaded to Spotify. They think that's going to be nearly 500,000 in the next sort of 4 years, 4 to 5 years. Well, my
yeah.
mind's already, even since I finished that track, I've already written another 12.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm going like, what should I do next? Because you have to have that change of pace and relevance on people's feeds going, this is new, whilst also plugging your old stuff. And you just end up being that guy that's always talking about his music.
It's a battle. It's absolute
Uh,
battle because, like you said, I when I explored music, I didn't have the, I guess in a way having that production experience and the years of experience that you've had, you kind of understand that whole thing of I need to be in people's face constantly with music. Like I need to make sure that I have content. So I did ironically record a lot of music because I got excited. I was like, oh, this is my first time doing music, did loads of tracks, but it's just like that whole release process, like artwork and submitting to things and getting blogs and getting press and trying to fit the playlist.
admin,
It's a lot of work. It's a
it's
lot of
admin.
work. So and also on top of that, I mean, hopefully, if anyone is watching back, please do go stream Indestructible. It's a great track, and a lot of effort goes behind that. So I do hope people can support music in the way that they used to. It's so hard to also get your family and friends to consistently be like, "Oh, here's another
They don't
track."
have to be. Having been in done enough gigs in bands, getting your friends and family aren't your fans, and you
Mm,
just have to win people over. And as much as I love it when people do listen to my music or if they leave a comment saying this is fab, I'm like, thank you, it does mean a lot.
yeah,
But ultimately, like I've taught myself, and I genuinely feel like this now, that my motivation for doing music is because I want to do it, and I just
yeah,
I want to release it. And
yes,
if many people listen to it, it's fantastic. If nobody does, yeah, I can just write something else. You can do it so
right,
quickly, and then
yeah.
it's done. And
Yeah, as long as
I
I
think,
mean it's an art form, right? As long as and you're expressing yourself in a way where for me it's been quite therapeutic, right? It's just getting my thoughts out. If the outcome of that is people really like the music, amazing. If not, like
yeah,
you said, I can just pick up and go move on. Like it's
yeah,
not the end of the world.
yeah.
But like I said, it's a lot of energy, a lot of effort that goes into a single
A lot of
release. So
admin.
yeah, a lot of admin, a lot
A
of
lot of
admin.
admin. It's just got to write. I finished, and adding on to that is the process of writing it, which can take anywhere from 1 day to a week or however long, and doing the mix and deciding if it's the right time to master. The
Mm,
artwork I find really easy now because I'll just get a photo, put it through like an AI artist. It's What's It Maduda, which is what the cover for Indestructible is. It's
yeah,
a generated image in Glitch Lab. Do some twirly stuff to it, put it through Wombo, then do some more stuff to it, and it's done. Next, I've
amazing.
not paid somebody like 50 quid for it,
Right.
and just move on. I get so
Yeah.
much fun spending time in this room and just doing stuff, and then whatever happens afterwards, it's great. But I'd rather be in
Yeah.
here doing the next thing, and then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. What's the plans for the future? What are you hoping to release in 2022? Another EP, more singles?
Um, for 2022, my intention is to start submitting some tracks to labels.
Mm,
Um, going to try and diversify a little bit because the common kind of sound throughout my last year's work is very much within that sort of retro futuristic dark wave, cyber wave influence sound. Doesn't
Right.
match up to a lot of the genre tracks out there. But I'd like to try and push into maybe some more sort of label friendlier directions where there's an opportunity for commerciality.
Mm.
Because it gives me something to do, and if you can hear screaming in the background, it's my kid's bedtime. Just FYI, we're not torturing anybody. Um, uh, because I want to have more stuff to do, and I'd rather spend more time making music and see if I can derive, a career from it whilst enjoying the process. So, in the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks, I've completed a number of tracks. I might submit a few of them for a couple of label reviews or label submission. If they say no, I'll release them independently, and then just keep going through that cycle. What I want to achieve this year is to really get a handful of tracks signed. I don't know which labels because my knowledge in that area is minimal, but I can find out. And just continue to grow as an artist and hone my craft in music production. Try and find a more defined sound as well. Experiment more with sound design. This week I had a lot of fun. I've got a drum machine. I've got an Arturia drum brute, which I'm not going to pull away. I'll do that because it's plugged in. It's over there. Sorry about the mess.
Yeah.
And so I made a little sample pack of it and shared it with like a music community called Finish More Music. And one of the people suggested I should go and make a track with the sample pack. And I was like, but it's just drums. It's just some kick drums and some snares. So I did, and I've got a track that's needs a bit of work, but it is I've turned those kick drums and snares into like pads, soaring bass lines and leads and like chords. Hi-hats, obviously, because that's quite easy to do.
Yeah.
So I'd like to explore that avenue some more.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, because your music does have a kind of feel to it where I could see it being an opening to like a Netflix show or being in some sci-fi movies. I think that
Yeah.
kind of route would be amazing. Have you ever submitted for a film or anything like that? Or
Not yet, no. I've not felt, probably haven't up until recently had the level of confidence to do that. Or the foolishness, for argument's sake, but also enough portfolio for them to go, okay, what else have you done?
yeah,
So part of writing music a lot and trying to become prolific or becoming prolific is just so they might say, no, but what else do you have? If I go, nothing, I look like a right
right.
tool. Or if I go, I'll go and check out these 30, 40 other tracks and pick one,
Yeah,
then, it's about, sometimes you can run the risk of investing too much emotion into each piece of work that you do, which is
right.
fine because you do care. But if you want to just make music, you have to go, right, Buff, it's done. Doesn't matter. Next, Buff. The
Yeah,
more you do that, the more rejection you get, the less it becomes an issue. And
yeah.
as artists, we get a lot of rejection anyway. I remember some of the rejection I got last year via submitting to like Submit Hub or Groover, and it hurts when you're that invested. You're like, oh,
Mhm.
and then people come back with, I just didn't like drums. You're like, yeah, but it's a good tune.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Okay, fine. So it's going through that cycle. And just to
Yeah.
take it 2 steps back, the reel I posted today of the Fractal video,
Yes, yeah,
that's the
yeah.
track. All the sounds are made with a kick drum and a snare. So if you
Nice.
want to see what I was
Yeah.
talking about.
Okay. No, I think yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a battle to also figure out what to do with music sometimes. But when you think too much, it kind of holds you back. You start
Yeah.
to reserve yourself from like, oh, now I need to think about what kinds of releases that I should do and stuff like that. I was reading a stat from Spotify. I think you need to release around 35 tracks on average till one becomes relatively popular, and that's on average in relation to all the tracks that are released every day.
Mm.
So again, like you said, it is kind of a numbers game in terms of like just putting things out there. So I'm excited to see what you have coming out soon. If people are watching back, where can they find you? On Instagram, on Spotify, SoundCloud?
You can find me on, well, the easiest way to find me is to go to daveragenormal.com. So from there, you're linked to Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, Apple Music, all the places. I've got a very small YouTube channel with some videos on it, which is, interestingly, Daverage Normal. But yeah, it's just Daverage on Spotify. It's Daverage J Normal. Instagram at Daverage Normal. Facebook at Daverage Normal. Twitter at Daverage J. I'm
Amazing.
most active on Instagram.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you. If anyone is watching back, please do go support the new single Indestructible by Daverage Normal. And again, all the links will be in the description if you are watching this back. Again, David, thank you so much. I'm excited to follow your journey now, so I'm very happy that we've connected. And I can't see what else you've got in store.
Gradler, it's great to chat with you. Have a fab weekend, and I'm sure
You
I'll
too.
speak to you soon, dude.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All the best. Ciao.
Bye.